Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I appreciate you coming and watching what I have to say. This section is going to be uh, going on for 10 to 12 videos. The videos I'm doing are 20 to 30 minutes long, and it'll take at least 10 or 12 to cover all of the issues that come up with this new section. Now, this new section that I'm talking about has come about recently with all the trouble Israel has with people making statements that are untrue. And they're doing that to manipulate the public opinion so that it will make a political difference in the world history. I know that in my lifetime, I remember when Dragnet was popular on TV, and I remember one of the lead detectives, then he would come up and say, give me the facts, ma'am, only the facts. And what he's saying is there is a difference from factual reality of what actually happened and what people think may have happened or have an opinion about what happened or how it might have happened. So what I'm going to be getting into now, because of the problems that Israel's had with Hamas having a basically whole industry to put out untruths in order to turn people away from Israel by making a political change in people's attitude. And what they try to do is to have the political environment of the different countries that are functioning, so they have to change what they're doing to conform with public opinion, because public opinion is something that does have a fairly large impact on what goes on. And this could be true if it is even a majority of the country or a very active minority of the country. Now, changes are made with not the majority of the people going along with it. And that is because a public opinion is so rampant that most people will agree with something that isn't factual. It is something that is an idea of people, and that's what public opinion is all about. But it does have a political outcome of the public opinion. So videos are going to be on public opinion and political outcome, because the political outcome is ruled by the public opinion in some areas, and it has been since history has started, and it probably will continue forever. Because when people come up with a new idea, it is a new idea. No one goes along with it or believes it, but as people starts to examine what the product of this new idea may be, people will change their mind. And when public opinion gets so strong, it does have a political impact on the way that the country has to act. And when the majority of the people want a certain thing in a country, the country has to start making motions in that direction to get what they want, or you're going to see a change in the leaders of the country. So I'm going to be talking a lot about public opinion and political outcome. And that is going to be then this is number 1 of 10 or 12 that will be in the future when I run out of things to talk about. When I've exhausted the public opinion in certain areas, then I'll move on to the next one until we get to the end of public opinions that people have or have had or may have in the future. And so what we want to talk about now is public opinion. What we will talk about in public opinion is we have a lot of people, and in fact, the United Nations has overwhelmingly condemned Israel in so many of the things they're doing. Many countries on the world I don't recall now how many there are. I know that it was started after the Second World War because it started in San Francisco when I was alive and living in the Bay Area. And I remember it was a big deal when it was meeting in San Francisco. And remember also at that time that the brothels had not been closed down every place, because at the time that the United Nations was formed, Sally Stanford was still running her brothel in San Francisco. But she did close it down shortly thereafter because brothels were being closed down as a negative impact on what is good for young people growing up in America. And I don't agree with all of those things that they had, but I have been a person that has enjoyed sex very much in my life and has been a very important part of my life. So I am a person that would have been in favor of having the brothels. We have still one county in Nevada that has them, and when I lived in the Bay Area, it would only take 4 hours to get to Nevada, and you could enjoy what the women were willing to let men use their body for money. But that is a public opinion about what I thought, and there's a lot of people in Nevada trying to close all the brothels down. Now, as far as I know, Nevada is the only place in the United States of America, and they're outlawed every place else. Now, I have donated for several years to a place called the Elimination Prosecuting Women that are involved in sex work. So if they're caught, instead of being arrested for being a prostitute, that is decriminalized. I finally stopped doing it because after about 4 or 5 years of doing it, I haven't seen that they've made any traction at all. I haven't seen that they've stopped the prosecution of women in sex work in any county in the entire United States of America. And in the near future, if I have some time on my hand, I'm going to start working on LA and Ventura County. And I'm going to kind of use some competition to make the two compete against themselves to being the first county that makes women absolutely equal in every way. And if women are absolutely equal in a society, if they choose to, they can make some money by selling their body to gentlemen that want to use their body for sexual gratification. And in my opinion, the women have a right to do that. Not every woman wants to do it, or it would be appalling to a lot of them. And in fact, that's probably the things that got the brothels closed down in the first place, because women are against other women doing it. Well, some women, and unfortunately some of them are addicted to drugs, and they want to finance their drug habit, so they're willing to do it. But it is a kind of thing that a lot of women that are not skilled, that are raised in a family that does not hold education as a high thing in society to achieve, and so their children don't progress academically. And when you are behind the curve academically, you're going to be behind the curve on getting the good jobs. Being unable to be a very academic person, you're never going to be a lawyer, and you're never going to be a doctor. And so that is going to be difficult for you to make a lot of money. Now, on the other hand, if women have the ability to sell their body for sex work, then that will help balance out the women that are unskilled, uneducated. They can still make a substantial amount of money as long as they take care of a body and have a body that men will be willing to use their body to satisfy their sexual needs for the money that they pay. And so there were a large, say, span of people in the industry because some of them will be out of shape and a little overweight. And there'll be a lot of different ones, and they won't be able to bring in as much money as the younger girls that have big, large breasts and a good looking body. They can probably get a much higher price for selling their body for the same sex the guy's going to get if he does it for the woman that's not quite as what people would call beautiful. So if they have a gorgeous body, they will be paid more for what they have. But in the other industry, when it has to do with academics, generally the people that are more educated, that are smarter, are able to get the jobs that pay the most money. And so the more money the job pays, the more educated you have to be. And so what we want to do is make sure that there is a correlation between these things and what makes society benefit. Now, unfortunately, we have what it looks like to me is going to be a downturn in the growth of the Muslim religion. And the reason I say that is two different reasons. Number one, people now realize that there never was a prophet or anyone that the Muslims hold out as being the backbone of their religion ever existed. It's as much of a fallacy as it is to believe that any of Shakespeare's stories were real and that the story was entirely an account of the history of people that actually lived. No, Shakespeare made up the stories, and the story of Muhammad has been proven to be totally made up. Muhammad never existed. As I've said before in my other videos, it can't be fixed, because when the gentleman that finally did come up with the story of Muhammad and put together that there was a guy that lived and did all of these things, made a critical mistake that cannot be fixed. And that was when he made up the story, he put Muhammad in a place that did not exist at the time he was living. So there was no one living there. It was an area that was very arid. There was no water, and therefore societies did not grow in that area. It wasn't until water was able to be piped in from other areas or be produced by desalination systems that take salt water and take out the salt and make fresh water so people can survive. So they made a critical mistake, and it can't be fixed because they've already come out with the story of what Muhammad did, when he did it, and all the times he did it, and the place that all of these things about did not exist at the time. Now, I am kind of familiar with that because I was born in Sonoma County in California. But during the Second World War, I was 5 years old, and we moved into the San Francisco Bay Area. We lived in Richmond, and I said before, my parents worked at the Kaiser shipyards, building ships during the Second World War. San Francisco, in our area, was the biggest and most substantial community that we had. It was the largest city. Oakland was pretty large as well. Oakland covered more area than San Francisco, but San Francisco had a lot more people in it. And San Francisco actually came about as a result of the gold rush. Well, the gold rush was in 1849. And so in 1849, it was a very small community at just down in basically what they would refer to as the waterfront area at the time where the ferry boats came in and the ferry landing was. And it began and grew very much during the early days of the gold rush era, and right after that, the United States of America, which was primarily east of the Mississippi at the time, annexed California as a state. And when they annexed California as a state, it became part of the United States of America, and San Francisco began to grow. But if you make up a story about someone and say they were born and raised and things happened in San Francisco in 1800, when you're in 1900 and in 1906, we know San Francisco had a big earthquake and fire that caused a lot of damage. So it was a very popular town. And if you did not know the history of San Francisco, and you were trying to talk about someone that lived 100 years before, you can make up in the 1800s, San Francisco did this, and so did this and that in San Francisco. And as time went on, people would say, wait a second, San Francisco didn't become a town until 1849. So what is he talking about, 1800? Well, that's exactly what they said about Muhammad. He lived in a place that was not a town. He was supposed to have attacked the town, murdered people there, captured people, took a slave lady that poisoned his food that actually helped to end his life. All of that was made up by the caliphs and sultans after the time that Muhammad was supposed to have lived. And what happened was, as I said before, this was only a religious movement in Egypt by the people who were basically Christians. But the Egyptian Christians had a problem with the Trinity. Now, if you talk about the Trinity, that's a particular religious discussion about what Jesus Christ was. He was 3 in 1, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. All, some people think, physical beings were all the same. I had Christian teachers tell me it was an attitude, not a physical thing. So it depends on what you believe. And the one that, as I said before, wanted to clear up the beliefs of Christian was Constantine. He understood that Christians believed a lot of different things, and Constantine got all of the Christian leaders together and said, you have to clean up your organization and make a declaration about what is right and what is wrong about Christianity. And as I said before, that's when the Christian people came up with orthodoxy and heresy. And unfortunately, heresy was one of the things that they put in with the Trinity. If you did not believe in the Trinity, you were a heretic. If you believed in the singularity of a physical being God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit as being one physical entity, now you believe the Trinity. Well, the Egyptians had a problem with that. They thought that was worshiping 3 gods, and that was in the 300s. But after the Christians cleaned up their act, and as I said before, when you tell people that you're a heretic, they don't like that kind of attitude. It's a negative thing, just like me calling people stupid. Hawaiian Honey says that's demeaning, so I say they're uninformed. Well, uninformed and stupid to me pretty much mean the same thing, so I was willing to change my name from stupid to uninformed. But when the people that were being told that they were heretics for believing what they did, then that was around the 300 years after Christ, and after Constantine made Christianity the religion of the Roman Empire, then they continued on having difference of opinion about what was right or wrong with Christianity. And it so happened that along with this attitude, when people started turning against Christianity, they decided to make their God different than the Christian God. And that's how the beginning of Islam started. Now, it took several years, maybe 50 to 100 years to come together. But 100 years later, with the caliphs and the sultans doing what they wanted and coming up with the idea that if you weren't a Muslim, you had to pay the tax. And since that's how governments made their money, and we did not have property taxes back then, so they used the tax on the person in order to support their industry or their government that they were trying to get to rule. And by being able to take over physically, just move in with an army and take over an area and say, okay, now you're under Muslim control and you have to pay the tax. They made the Christian people have to do what was necessary in order to being a part of the country without having to pack up and move and go someplace else, to still be a part of the nation that they were probably born and raised in, even though it may not have officially been a country at the time. But when the Muslims started taking over areas, then they started creating nations. And that continued on for since around the 600 to 700 years after Christ, all the way up through the Second World War. By the time the Second World War came around, most of the world had been established with countries and country borders. Now, it wasn't absolute, because there were some people that wanted their independence that was part of another country. And their area, they would be called, would be more like a state or a county. And they would be trying to get together with other states and counties in their same physical area to break away from the people ruling their country so they could start a country that would be more consistent with them being able to prosper. And as I said before, I am a believer of competition, and I certainly believe in competition about having a government that can produce. That's why I'm pushing hard for women to be equal, because women having total equality, I think, will bring something to the plate that no one really is aware of. When it becomes something that is a public opinion that women will bring something, then that public opinion will produce a political outcome where some country now will make women absolutely equal. But that's why we're going to be talking about political opinions, because everyone has political opinions, and they express them every place, wherever you go. And as I said before, political opinions, in my opinion, aren't all political. Mine are mainly political. I stay away from the religious ones. But every opinion you have, I think, can be split up in three categories. It can be a political opinion, it can be a religious opinion, or it can be a self-interested opinion. And by self-interest, I talk about the horsepower engine of a male running amok. And that is what I mean by people that want to subjugate other Homo sapiens as their slaves or their subordinate people. No human being is better than any other. And the countries that work better are the ones that have government or governments of the people, by the people, and for the people. And if you don't have a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, you have things like Iran, which is run by a religious person, and this religious person has murdered 2 to 3 million people in his country just because they don't agree with him. And if you don't agree with their political opinion, they think you're an enemy of the country. No, countries are only interested in how one Homo sapien treats another. Politics and religion are totally separated. There is no religion that has anything to do with the running of a country. You can be any religion you want to and be a member of the political country that you belong to, but you cannot interject your religion and force the country to accept what your religion is. In the religious realm of things, people can believe anything they want to. When you're running a country, you're only interested in how one human being treats another one and what the government rules are that protect everyone's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And there is a lot of activity going on in the United Nations today condemning Israel. And why are they condemning Israel? Because the outcome of what's going on, because Israel is protecting itself against the retarded Muslims that think that they are going to heaven by being a martyr. No, they're going to hell like every other killer and murderer on the face of the planet. When you are an evil person, you're doing evil things against Homo sapiens, and it cannot be tolerated by any political country, no matter who they are. Even if you're called the ruler of Iran, or you're called Putin, head of Russia, and the people of Russia voted for him, and he's an idiot. And why do I know he's an idiot? Because he's murdered more than 3 of his citizens. And any Homo sapien that does that deserves to be in a cage or killed. No exception. So Putin doesn't need to be the leader of a country. He doesn't have the right to stand before the UN. He is a murderer of his citizens and needs to be caged and killed. Now, if the United Nations would apply that against people like Putin and the people running Iran, then they would be back on track. What they're doing now is supporting the evil people, the third of the people that are only interested in self-interest. That means that it has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with politics, because politics is for the people that are running a country that believe on life, liberty, and property for all of their citizens and equality of those things. And if you don't believe in that, then you're only one of the other third of the people that are interested in self-interest. Trump did. When Trump ran for president, he said, I get $1 a year for being the president of the United States of America. He did not take money from America by being the president. Now, his second term, I think he didn't have that same agreement with Americans, and I don't think he does that. He realizes now that it's cost him a lot of money to fight off the people that attacked him. And a lot of the personal attacks were just trying to make public opinion against Trump. 300,000 people when Gaza Strip was given to the Palestinians. Now there's over 2 million. Now that is maybe 20 years or 30 years down the road, and they've gone from 300,000 people to over 2 million people. A higher birth rate than probably any other nation in the world. When you pick on a race and you try to exterminate that race has to be given land, and enough land to support every one of them that are in the world. And we have a lot of them in America that are Jewish people, and unfortunately, they're making fun of the land of Israel. So what I want to do is I'm going to bring it in now to public opinion number 1. I think I have enough time here to put in 20 to 30 minutes to end up with public opinion number 1. And when I get a chance, I'll come back to you with public opinion number 2. And for that, I will say goodbye. This is the end of public opinion number 1.